It has been more than a decade since Skyrim changed gaming forever. Few worlds have ever captured players' imaginations the way it did. Its stories, its freedom, its modding scene, all of it turned the Elder Scrolls into one of the most influential RPGs ever made. Because of that, the excitement and anticipation for its sequel has been intense. Concerns have also mounted, many wondering if Bethesda can deliver with the real pressure they face. Some former developers believe they face an uphill battle. Since the Elder Scrolls 6 was first teased, Bethesda has given very little away. No gameplay, no real trailer, not even a confirmed release window. Yet through interviews, tech details, and subtle teases across Starfield and other social media posts, a clearer picture has started to form. We now have enough to understand where the next Elder Scrolls will likely take place, what themes it could explore, and why Bethesda's approach this time might be very different from anything they've done before. This isn't just another sequel, it's shaping up to be the defining RPG of Bethesda's next era. It's one they cannot afford to be anything less than great. So today, let's break down everything we actually know about the Elder Scrolls 6 and what it all points to. In early 2025, with the launch of Oblivion Remastered, Bethesda's Todd Howard declared that they were actively working on the 6th chapter, something that has been true for the last number of years. The game has been in pre-production for a very long time. Howard has even admitted he never envisioned it would take this long for them getting around to developing this new game. It was never part of the plan. In 2016, he stated one of the reasons why they weren't making Tease 6 at that time was because the technology wasn't where it needed to be for what they wanted to do with the next game. In 2021, he seemingly implied that Starfield's engine upgrades would be the basis for the Elder Scrolls 6. In an interview with The Telegraph at the time, Howard stated, "It's like a new tech base. The vast majority of our development work is on Starfield right now, but everybody works on everything, so the projects kind of intertwine. It's good to think of the Elder Scrolls 6 as still being in a design phase, but we're checking the tech. Is this going to handle the things we want to do in that game? Every game will have some new suites of technology, so Elder Scrolls 6 will have some additions onto Creation Engine 2 that the game is going to require." However, Skyrim lead designer Bruce Nesmith in 2025 discussed some of the limitations with the engine that were not going away. Specifically, he highlighted how loading screens would always be featured due to the unacceptable performance woes they face when trying to make seamless loading happen. But in 2024, celebrating the 30th anniversary of the franchise, BGS revealed that they were playing early builds of the Elder Scrolls 6 that were offering the same joy, excitement, and promise of adventure as the rest of the series' 30-year history. So likely, from once work wrapped up on Skyrim to when Starfield went gold, Tease 6 was in the pre-production phase, but now is in full production. Though the question is, how far away is this new installment? During the Activision Blizzard Xbox FTC trial, Microsoft gaming head Phil Spencer was asked about the Elder Scrolls 6, and he confirmed that the game was still 5+ years away, likely putting its release window around 2028. Spencer did add, though, that nothing was nailed down. Same goes for platforms, which early indication after Xbox purchased Bethesda was that the game could be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem, something that no longer holds true. Todd Howard, even in 2020, didn't seem to believe that Tease 6 would not be releasing on multiple platforms. It must be noted, though, we are nearing the next generation of consoles, and many rumors indicate a launch of both the PS6 and the next Xbox could be coming towards the end of 2027. A known leaker, Extazels, claimed just last month that BGS is currently targeting a launch in late 2027, which likely points to this game being a cross-gen title if true. Although, it is important to note that due to the pressure of this game and the lengthy delays that we just saw Starfield experienced, who's to say the target date doesn't end up changing? Now, one very interesting curiosity surrounding Tease 6 is its design philosophy, and in 2019, speaking to IGN, Howard discussed how Skyrim's legacy would impact this next game.
And we're 8 years post Skyrim.
Yeah.
It lets us know going into Elder Scrolls 6, this is a game we need to design and people will play for a decade at least.
A game designed to be played for at least a decade is something that was also said about Starfield. Different types of games, sure, but definitely a notable remark of the approach that they're taking to this game's development. And Howard, a few years later, again speaking to IGN, emphasized how they wanted to deliver with this next game, especially considering the long wait between entries in the franchise.
You know, hopefully Elder Scrolls 6, you don't want to say like, hey, that's worth that kind of wait. but that it does stand up to the series as it has been in a really big, impactful way for when it comes out.
Also in 2022, Todd Howard sat down for a lengthy interview with Lex Friedman, and they did get into where the Elder Scrolls 6 was in its development at the time.
So take Elder Scrolls 6, we forgot where it's set. What's the tone? What are the big features? We discussed the beginning of the game, which we've had for a very long time.
Where's it set again?
Yep. In Tamriel. So we've already done a take on the music. For Elder Scrolls 6. Is it?
Feel it.
No, the music we put in the teaser for it. This was 2018. We've taken that further, obviously. Again, we're working on the world. You're then doing concepting and design for the world, and then once we're wrapping up one game, we can really start prototyping the new one, and you're usually building kind of your initial spaces.
It probably is important to remember that at the time of this interview, Starfield was still the main focus at BGS. No longer the case today, but it's still notable to hear the different aspects that were being worked on and already figured out even during its pre-production phase, a phase that came to an end in the latter half of 2023, Bethesda VP Pete Hines in an interview saying it had moved into the early development phase but emphasized that Starfield was still going to be their focus for some time. And yes, there are people working on the Elder Scrolls 6, but Starfield is what the studio has focused on. So no, you are not going to be hearing soon about the Elder Scrolls 6. Starfield is our focus for now, and it's going to remain our priority for a while before we talk about anything else. And he was likely referring to the updates and expansions that they've been actively working on for Starfield, the first of which released last year was Shattered Space, and the next of which, Terran Armada, is hinted to come out in early 2026. Now, we know again based on their 30th anniversary post, which came a year and a half ago, that Tease 6 has continued to make huge progress with early builds being played. The next we see or hear of this game is still something that is on the minds of a lot of people. Bethesda typically likes to have short reveals to release marketing cycles, but Starfield was different, a different beast. Maybe that was impacted by the pandemic, but we did learn a lot more about that game earlier than expected. And supposedly a new rumor from this summer could indicate maybe Bethesda's planning to give another early look at the game in the next year or so. Xbox insider Jez Corden stated in June that he had heard from sources that a new trailer is internally circulating at Microsoft. Whether or not that's released to the public soon remains to be seen. One of the biggest question marks surrounding the Elder Scrolls 6 has been its setting. Prior to 2018, there were heavy debates if we would see Valenwood, elsewhere, or maybe even leave Tamriel for Akavir. But Bethesda themselves gave us our biggest indication of where the game would be set with its 2018 teaser trailer. It's Hammerfell, or at least Hammerfell. Hammerfell is described as a massive region covered by vast jungles, wooded mountain ranges, subtropical grasslands, humid swamps, and arid deserts. It also borders Skyrim, so certain parts definitely are colder. The province is known for being home to the Red Guards, a race of men known for being cunning warriors and skilled swordsmen. It's a very Middle Eastern-inspired location with a rich history that includes the likes of the Dwemer before they mysteriously vanished. It's the sort of diverse location that seems perfect for a new game. There have been heavy debates though for years about the specific scenery of the teaser shot. Is it that of Hammerfell's coastline? One player went into the out of bounds of Skyrim and things surprisingly line up well with where Hammerfell should be located. Other users have disputed these claims by arguing the placement of the sun indicates this has to be Iliac Bay, which could be indication both High Rock and Hammerfell will be featured. High Rock is known for its hills, forests, coastlines, rocky mountains, and some marshy areas. It has many small villages and towns and castles. It's also home to the Bretons, a hybrid race of both human and elven ancestry. Either way, the one consensus reached is that this northwestern region of Tamriel will be the setting of the Elder Scrolls 6, and Bethesda has not slowed down with providing further evidence to support that belief. In 2019, with Bethesda celebrating 25 years of the Elder Scrolls, Todd Howard discusses building technology that will be used for new games. The video then briefly has a Bethesda developer talking about scanning real-world assets for their games while showcasing an in-game model of a rock and cliff seemingly made of sandstone, followed by photography of a desert canyon. At the end of 2020, celebrating New Year's, Bethesda tweeted out a very curious image, with the caption, "Transcribe the past and map the future." What makes this post so fascinating is that the candles that light up this map of Skyrim also have another candle in the bottom left-hand corner that light up right next to where Hammerfell would be located, but also the actual text of the region's name is there. And just about a year later, with one of Starfield's first trailers, fans noticed a noteworthy scratch or carving on the interior of a spaceship. The thinking is that this was an Easter egg that was teasing at the location of the Elder Scrolls 6 because it very much lines up with Iliac Bay, also referred to in the games as Starfall Bay, Starfall, Starfield, a body of water between High Rock and Hammerfell. And just last year, an employee of Bethesda had their Pinterest account discovered by fans, and surely enough, it was full of images that highlighted desert and rocky landscapes, as well as costumes and armor usually worn by people in warm and desert areas. Fans of the Elder Scrolls Online have also been quick to highlight the fact that Hammerfell is one of the regions with the least amount of content in the game, with no real reason provided for why that is. But based on the fact that the ESO team admitted just last year that they're constantly communicating with Bethesda over lore, that likely is the reason. There's just tons of evidence mounting. Again, with Starfield, there's an achievement in-game called the Hammer Falls, which is tied to a main mission in a western desert-like city. Skyrim notoriously has numerous mentions to Hammerfell, even in the game's intro. Bethesda is infamous for teasing their next game in the series' latest installment. More on that in a second. And the new mobile game, The Elder Scrolls Castles, also weirdly is said to focus a lot on the Redguards and Bretons for reasons unknown. Even Bethesda design director Emil Pagliarulo added fuel to the fire with randomly posting a now-deleted image of him wearing a turban, clothing often worn by Redguards. One of these instances could be considered a coincidence, but this sheer amount reinforces the belief that Tease 6 is located in Hammerfell and maybe even also High Rock. Now, with that established, especially after Skyrim, we might have an indication of where the story of the franchise is headed, or at least part of it. In Skyrim, there's a very interesting side quest in Whiterun that has Alucard warriors tracking down a Redguard woman accused of treason and attempting to bring her back to Hammerfell. She explains to the Dragonborn that her crime was speaking out against the Aldmeri Dominion and that they hired the Alucard to hunt her down and assassinate her. One of the Alucard warriors claims, though, she betrayed Hammerfell, leading to the downfall of one of their Redguard cities during their war with the Thalmor, and that the Redguard houses want her brought back to face justice.
She sold the city out to the Aldmeri Dominion. Were it not for her betrayal, Tanith could have held its ground in the war. The other noble houses discovered her betrayal, and she fled. They want her brought back alive. The resistance against the Dominion is alive and well in Hammerfell, and they want justice.
It's the sort of precursor quest that reminds me of Fallout 3's The Replicated Man, which teased at what inevitably Fallout 4 would focus on. Story, setting, all of that. And again, it might have been right in front of us the whole time. The Empire or Imperials and the Aldmeri Dominion or Thalmor is background conflict that is brewing. There are multiple mentions in Skyrim that another war is likely to break out. Both sides are preparing for it. The Empire is weakened but rebuilding, and the Thalmor influence is spreading. Hammerfell is interesting because they rejected the original peace treaty that the Empire and the Thalmor reached after the Great War, leaving the Empire because of it and becoming an independent power, as they would have had to cede land over to the Thalmor. So the Redguards of Hammerfell continued fighting with the Thalmor, leaving southern Hammerfell devastated by war. Eventually, a treaty between the Redguards and the Thalmor is reached, but again, there is a belief all of these treaties are temporary and a much larger conflict is soon to break out. Hammerfell also has its own internal struggles amongst the Redguards, struggles that might be exploited into a new civil war between the Crowns and Forebears. The Crowns being more traditionalists, worshipping the old gods of Yokuda, while the Forebears are viewed as more progressive and adaptable. Both have united in the past, such as stopping the Thalmor from advancing into Hammerfell in the Fourth Era, but also way in the past in the Second Era when they ceased their hostilities temporarily to deal with the threat of Molag Bal. This specific conflict was explored in ESO. Almost 10 years ago now, but one of my very first theories about Tease 6 was that we would see the Dwemer finally return, and 10 years later, I don't think that'll happen at all, and their disappearance will remain a mystery. Of course, seeing more of their technology and maybe even a living Dwemer is possible, just as it was in Morrowind, but in 2021 in an interview with Game Informer, Elder Scrolls Online creative director Rich Lambert revealed that the Dwemer was on the MMORPG games' drawing board, but the venture was quickly nixed. We went down the path at one point where we were exploring Dwemer stuff. Everyone wanted to know about that, and we wanted to know about it too, and we were digging into that, Lambert explained. explained, and Todd Howard kindly reminded us that this was something we will never do. We will never come out and spoil the mystery and the secrets of the Dwemer. And based on that remark, I absolutely believe that will still hold true with Tease 6 or any future Elder Scrolls content. Some mysteries are left best unanswered and open to our imagination. The Dwemer mystery, their disappearance, is probably the greatest mystery in the Elder Scrolls lore, and it makes sense to keep that as is. But again, because the Dwemer were the first to settle Hammerfell in the First Era, we'll definitely be exploring their ancient ruins and whatever technology they were building at the time. Now, as with every Bethesda game, the protagonist always has some sort of notable background and nickname. The Elder Scrolls 6 will certainly be no different. One theory is that the legacy of the Redguard's past will come into play. The Redguards infamously came from the continent of Yokuda, which was west of Tamriel. Most of it mysteriously sank into the sea in the First Era, and the surviving Yokudans sailed to the east and eventually became known as the Redguards after settling in Hammerfell. There's a belief that we could be called the Hunding, which is the Yokudan make-way god of perseverance over infidels, who occasionally manifests as avatars to aid the Yokudans. Hunding is the god that helps the Redguards make way for their settlements by driving out other people. As a result, this god was particularly important when the Redguards first arrived in Hammerfell, driving out the elves and orcs living there, and might be important if, say, a Thalmor or other threat tries taking over the region. The Redguards have their own pantheon of gods that likely will factor into our journey one way or another. We could also see our protagonist learning the ways of the Ansi sword singers, which are considered legend in the Fourth Era. They were a renowned group of Yokudan warriors that were known for creating a spirit sword known as the Shihai. Seeing our protagonist having to find and learn this lost technique could be part of the Elder Scrolls 6 storyline and maybe a mechanic that has a similarity to Skyrim's Dragon Shouts. Even the Elder Scrolls Online explored this ancient Redguard history in a few different quest lines, one of which you're interacting with the ghosts of these ancient Ansei warriors, and another few quests that highlighted the near mythical art.
This sword is a significant specimen of lore, direct evidence of a legendary event in ancient Redguard history. The sword singers were so disciplined they could create a spirit sword, a sword made from their very thoughts. The blade of a sword singer is a physical link between ancient Yokuda and Alikir.
The Shihai. It's a sacred and private thing to a Redguard.
And yeah, it's not a question of if this will be explored, more so what will be the extent of it. Both Hammerfell and High Rock have tons of established lore, which gives indication of the many routes that Bethesda could explore. We have not even talked about the Adamantine Tower and the possible importance of that within High Rock. There's just a lot here, and many different theories of how Bethesda will expand on what's already been established in prior games. Perhaps one of the more interesting new mechanics to be included in Tease 6 is one that Todd Howard envisioned originally for Skyrim. In an early design document from 2007, Howard listed a lot of the main things he wanted Skyrim to include, one of which did not, and will definitely be a major feature in the newest installment: Stronghold, a free-form castle, dungeon, fortress the player makes and recruits people into. That was a concept initially intended for Skyrim but did not happen, likely due to the technology at the time. Bethesda obviously ended up introducing the mechanic within Fallout 4 and more recently with Starfield. And specifically with Starfield, they took this to another level, with a customizable ship. That's why with the Elder Scrolls 6, there's a strong belief that we'll be able to create and customize our own castles, but also that sailing and naval combat will be major new mechanics introduced to the franchise. And with the game set in the western region of Tamriel, it's possible that we'll be able to fight off pirates, join a pirate guild, and or venture into the islands that are west of both Hammerfell and High Rock. This belief aligns with something Todd Howard mentioned in an interview with Lex Friedman in 2022, in which he said that in the pre-production phase, they like to discuss a big ticket feature. This could be that.
Probably by the midpoint of one game, we've had enough conversations to understand what the next one's going to be. What are the big ticket, like, where's it set? What's the tone? Is there a big ticket feature or two that make it really unique?
Oblivion had its gates, Skyrim had dragons, maybe Tease 6 big ticket feature is sailing and battling on the seas, maybe even venturing into the seas. And who knows, maybe with Dwemer technology, who's to say sailing is exclusive to just the seas? Truly, Bethesda could take something like this very far. Airships already have their place in prior games, a working one in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, plans for a Dwemer airship can be found in the base game of Morrowind, and even Skyrim features what appears to be a damaged one that you can explore. There are more examples, but it's not like Bethesda has not developed modern tech to make a mechanic like this happen, as notoriously Fallout 4 features a massive airship, not to mention everything already developed with Starfield. This very much feels like a feature BGS has been building towards. Former Skyrim lead designer Bruce Nesmith, who left Bethesda during Starfield's development, talked about another mechanic that will feature in Tease 6. That would be Skyrim's magic system, something he says is absolutely going to continue. Furthermore, he added, Todd Howard knew what he wanted, what he wants, but that's this set of ideas over here. There's the whole rest of the game that is not defined, and that's going to be worked on and decided by the people who are there now. What will probably come through are things that were developed in Oblivion and Skyrim that will be further developed into Elder Scrolls 6. Nesmith doesn't know entirely what this transition will look like, but that his fingerprints will be etched into it. Nesmith continued adding, the whole magic system for Skyrim, I persuaded Todd to let me throw the baby in the bathwater out for Skyrim and start again from scratch. There will probably be traces of that in Tease 6, the whole you do it to get better at it. That's absolutely going to continue. A lot of the concepts dealing with how you level and stuff like that, there will be a bunch of new ideas thrown in, but I'm betting some of the stuff I worked on will still survive to the new one. Another gameplay mechanic that Bethesda has put extensive work into is Radiant AI systems. Up to this point, it has been kind of underwhelming with its implementation, feeling far too repetitive, but once again, talking with Lex Friedman in 2022, Todd Howard outlined his hope of pushing this further in the future and used Elder Scrolls as an example.
But even more so in the future to say, how do these things exist? Take like a faction in the world. What is their role in the world, as opposed to just their role is for the player to join it, go through a bunch of quests, and become the head of the faction? You know, think a little bit deeper about the simulation and what would the Mages Guild be doing in a fantasy world, or the Fighters Guild be doing in a fantasy world, versus just sign up, do quests, get gold. It's not just that it's bustling, it's that they feel rooted in it. They don't feel like a storefront for come here, do quests, get experience.
Howard seemingly implies here that they want factions to feel more alive. He wants to develop systems that has these groups interacting in the world that feels realistic to their identity instead of what they are now, which is scripted to specific locations with little role shaping the open world besides from our actions and choices. Being that Starfield includes the usual Radiant quests and such that we saw already in Skyrim and Fallout 4, I do hope this sort of dynamic AI activity finally sees itself implemented, like as is discussed here. It's the type of feature that can make a world feel more alive and less static, which has been a criticism of Bethesda open worlds for some time. Previously in 2020 at a developer conference, Howard said that Tease 6 would feature procedural generation with its map, but didn't really dive into specific details. I just hope implementation is more so to do with the encounters and how NPCs act in the world, rather than, well, what we got with Starfield. And this 2022 interview definitely hints at the former. Now again, with the Lex Friedman conversation, Howard discussed their approach to character systems and how that mechanic has already been thought out for Tease 6, in which he spotlights the fact that character creation is now more visual than anything else, and that they've pushed towards a classless system post-Oblivion with how players can build their characters, a philosophy that will carry over to Tease 6.
So we have moved away post, Oblivion to a classless, meaning you don't have a strict character class, warrior, mage, thief, whatever, in our games.
And that's continuing for the. Are you like thinking of Elder Scrolls 6? You're already thinking about that kind of stuff. So you think of early on the.
Yeah, we know what the first few hours are like. We know what the character system is basically like. And
Skyrim Grandma is one of the most beloved members of the Elder Scrolls community, just recently retiring, and years before casting doubt that she would live to play the next game. There had been a massive movement to have her appear in Tease 6, and that wish was granted with Bethesda revealing her appearance in their 25-year anniversary video of Elder Scrolls, forever immortalizing her in the franchise. Furthermore, just this year in a charity campaign for Make-A-Wish, Bethesda organized a silent auction in which they were giving one winner the opportunity to work with BGS to create a character to appear as an NPC in the Elder Scrolls 6. All of the money made from the auction would go directly to Make-A-Wish. The unofficial Elder Scrolls pages led an effort to have former member Lorana Pyrell immortalized in the game, and they were the successful winner with an $85,000 donation to Make-A-Wish. They discussed their meeting with BGS in late 2025 and that they were excited for what's in store. The question surrounding the ifs and whens and what ifs will continue for some time with the Elder Scrolls 6, and supposed leaks will continue to spread. One of which that keeps coming up is the random 4chan post from last year from a supposed employee that claimed that the game was coming in 2028, located in Hammerfell, would feature dragons again, skills and complexity somewhere between Morrowind and Oblivion, and 13 major cities with the smallest around the size of Whiterun. Many fans were quick to debunk this, but eventually it would not surprise me in the slightest to see some very real leaks to emerge, if they haven't already. Starfield infamously had screenshots leaked years before the game was revealed by Bethesda. Fallout 4's entire design document was leaked years before the game was revealed. It's a trend that will likely continue with Tease 6, but only time will tell. Everyone in their head has a vision for what they hope the Elder Scrolls 6 will be like. Even some former developers have shared hopes and expectations that they have. Some a little more sour than others, some even advocating for an engine switch. Skyrim's code lead designer Kurt Coleman even predicted the game would be pretty normcore compared to previous entries, as Todd Howard isn't known for gravitating towards the weird stuff. Bethesda Game Studios has changed, and there are certainly questions mounting, especially in regards to the current talent at the studio making the game. While this is Todd Howard's studio, with him having full control over everything, some notable contributors are no longer there, and some that remain have made alarming remarks. Starfield Shattered Space is arguably the worst piece of content BGS has ever put out, but design director Emil Pagliarulo has defended it on multiple occasions. He is also not alone with sharing that perspective. Will Shen, a notable quest designer behind Fallout and Starfield, left the studio in late 2023. Bruce Nesmith, Skyrim's lead designer, left around 2022 after being at the studio for more than 20 years. Kurt Coleman, Skyrim's co-lead designer, in late 2023 announced he was leaving the studio after more than 20 years at BGS. Michael Kirkbride, known for his huge lore contributions to the franchise in its earliest days, reacted to Coleman's departure with frustration, saying on a Reddit post, "With Kurt gone, my faith in Tease 6 has cratered. Kurt was the best writer that Tease ever had. He was a torchbearer of keeping Tamriel's most unique qualities and ideas alive. No surprise, as he came up with so many of them. His leaving will be to the creative detriment of 6. Such a massive mistake letting him go." Bethesda has brought in controversial outside talent such as a former longtime BioWare writer that joined BioWare on the Mass Effect 2 days and recently was let go from that studio after working on Dragon Age the Veilguard. They were hired at BGS recently as a senior quest designer. Concerns surrounding the writing quality and newly created lore in Tease 6 is not going away and has been a topic of debate for quite some time. Regardless, in a few years we'll hopefully finally not have to talk about what the game could be and instead experience it for ourselves. Bethesda's silence has stretched for years, and the studio that once defined open world RPGs is not the same one it was back when Skyrim launched. Whether the Elder Scrolls 6 can live up to that legacy or even capture the same magic is an open question, but one thing is for sure: after more than a decade of waiting, expectations have never been higher, and the pressure on Bethesda has never been greater. What are your expectations for this long-awaited sequel? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.